Good evening, everyone. I'm audible. I hope you all had good nutrition in lunch, but also a dose of caffeine because it's very tough to survive sessions after lunch. And malnutrition, the lesser we talk about the numbers, the better it is. One third of India children are underweight, wasted, and stunted. Every second woman in India is anemic. I was also anemic. And is this better? Yeah? Okay. And a lot of money has been spent by the government in their interventions. And over 60 plus years for India now, right? Despite that, the nutritional indicators haven't improved. And that's where the need for the private sector comes in, the need for civil society comes in. Impact for Nutrition is one such brand agnostic platform which provides the private sector an opportunity to be a part of a better social impact, right, in health and nutrition. Impact for Nutrition is heavily involved with the government initiative of Poshan Abhiyan, which is the flagship program for better nutrition in India. And Impact for Nutrition is also aligned with the SDG 2, which is better nutrition. And as all of my panelists have been introduced, all of them have been working through their CSR funding on nutrition, on health, and today, by the end of the day, hopefully we get to understand what does a CSR private sector intervention look like for nutrition, and how do we encourage more of you to be part of that. So if I may start with you, Abhishek, could you take us through your journey of working with the government, as you mentioned, in several states, and what compelled you to work with the government to support some of their initiatives?
Yeah, sure. To give it a little more context, what CINI Community Initiatives does is we have a proprietary nutritional supplement, which is micronutrient fortified and primarily designed for women and children, targeting malnutrition and related issues. So we started in 2011 and we started very small as a social enterprise and as a sister concern of a larger NGO. So it was imperative for us that we find large impact and large buyers quickly, and no one has more impact or reach other than the government organizations or agencies. So we reached out to the ICDS of various districts within West Bengal. And fortunately, what we found is that there was a gap in nutrition, where there was a need for supplemental nutrition in ICDS centers for children, but they were not able to find a right fit product which they could feed to these children every morning. Where we came in, we brought in a product which was easy to consume every day and had very less issues on logistics. So I think there was a strong fit of the product and the need. And we brought in CINI Nutrimix as a morning snack for ICDS nutritional supplementation. And that's how the journey started. Through this collaboration with the governments, what happened is through a single point collaboration, we were able to maximize impact and create deep and wide reach. To give an example, like even if we collaborate with a certain block in the particular district, we would be easily reaching 15 to 20,000 children at one go. So that you can understand the nature of and the size of impact that it gives us. Since then, we have been nutrition partners not only to the state of West Bengal, but also partly to Jharkhand as well as Sikkim. And we have the capability to customize products for the state's requirement. And we have been doing a good job, I guess, because it's a win-win for both government and us, where they find a good product and we find good reach and impact through these collaborations.
Absolutely. I think aligning with the government, the one biggest advantage is that you get the reach, right? And then moving on to Nilesh, you've been working as a health specialist across, for various stakeholders, for various organizations. What do you think are the 2-3 main points for the private sector to engage with the government and support the government in their interventions?
So Neha, before what I will just like to add what Abhishek has already said. The government is the biggest player, we have to say, like Poshan Abhiyan, ICDS program, everything is there, and their system, which is present, and what we say, there is a temple in each and every village. Similarly, there is an Anganwadi center in each and every village. So none of the CSRs basically will match that reach. So if we want to survive, and when we say the sustainable impacts of the sustainable programs, we have to have a hand in hand with the government. They have the system, they have all the mechanism, supply. When we say any development program, there is always an equation about the supply and demand. Government is the biggest supplier, I would say, and the demand is basically the community. And the community awareness, until and unless community comes and avail the services from the government, that gap we are not going to bridge up. So I would definitely say that the private players and the company CSRs would definitely work on the demand generation part, because government is not lacking with the supply part. They have all the Anganwadi workers, we have all the take-home rations. There will be some gaps here and there because of the implementation challenges. But definitely if we work towards, the services are there in the Anganwadi center, we know all the 6 services are there, take-home rations, supplementary nutrition, education. But if we wish to work as a CSR, we should definitely focus on how we can strengthen those services on the qualitative aspect, basically. Let's take an example, THR is having some issues with the SHGs, or the hot cook mill is having some quality issues. How through our supportive supervision, through our technical inputs, like impact for nutrition, how with our technical inputs, we can strengthen what is already existing, rather than duplicating the efforts, basically. And community is the biggest stakeholder next to the government, basically. And if community owns the program through our behavior change communication, the new coin term we know SBCC, social behavior change communication, sounds very easy to say, but it's very difficult. But when we have to do through the private chain and the private party, quality of services, if we strengthen upon, it will be good. And through our program in Adani Foundation, the SuPoshan, which we have received the award of CSR Project of the Year, we focus on the demand generation, basically. How the community demands can be generated, and they can link to the government services, let it be ICDS services, or Pradhan Mantri Matru Suraksha Yojana, or Janani Suraksha Karyakram. We have to link each and every beneficiaries towards that scheme. Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana we have, and that cash incentive. But those cash, whether that is really going to be used for the nutrition of the mother, we're not very sure, right? In informal sector, they are giving the cash so that she will get a paid leave. But they are not using that money for her nutrition, she is not getting the rest. So we should try and empower the community towards that aspect. Secondly, I would definitely say that private players which can, the quality training. We know that the ICDS worker or the frontline workers, apart from their design and the designated job, they're doing multiple other activities. Let's say it's a population counting, census, election, all those things. So, and the nutrition trainings and all those things, if we through our platforms train them hand on hand, rather than just giving a monotonous training, a practical aspect into the training. Most of the places you'll find there is no stadiometer, there are no weight machines. But through our training, most of them don't know how to use the stadiometer. Our Anganwadi workers are mostly like 40, 50 plus. They don't know how to use the Android phones. Through our interventions, if we strengthen that training part, then definitely we can increase the outreach of the government, and thereby our country can reach towards our malnutrition targets. Yep.
Absolutely. I think the real heroes, and we've seen in COVID, right, are the frontline health workers, and they are so overburdened. So if you're supporting them, if you're supporting the communities with behavioral, changes, yeah. I think that's a great value add that the private sector puts in. Thank you. Devika, coming to you. Could you tell us more about what Piramal Swasthya is doing in the aspirational districts as part of their CSR?
Sure, Neha. So I'll just brief you about the journey of Piramal Swasthya. I mean, this can be a example for other CSRs, like how we picked up over a period of time and how we looked at this journey after a decade of journey, both with government and without government earlier. So Piramal Swasthya is a philanthropic arm of Piramal Foundation, which basically works on the health and nutrition portfolio. So prior to 2018, and before we collaborated with the government think tank group, that is Niti Aayog, we were basically working on a little bit on ad hoc manner, like wherein we did some mobile medical services, we did 104 services, we did 108 services, we did health information helpline. Basically, our target was to bridge the last mile connectivity. So in the remote locations, remote geographies, wherever there is no access for health and nutrition services, bridging the last mile connectivity was our major goal. So then in 2018, when we collaborated with the Niti Aayog and right from the ranking of the aspirational districts, we are part of the think tank group, wherein we listed the indicators upon which the districts can be ranked. It is health, nutrition, education, couple of other indicators. So why ranking was important? So that all government, non-government, CSR, whoever it could be, we can channelize all our efforts to the most backward districts which are more needy, which are more vulnerable. So therefore that shift was very much required, wherein focusing more on the most needy and the most vulnerable. So therefore, Piramal Swasthya from 2018 onwards, in close collaboration with Ministry of Health and Ministry of for Ministry of Health, we basically worked on the bottom lying 25 districts. See, out of 115 districts that was identified as aspirational districts, which were poor performing with regard to various indicators, the bottom lying 25 districts were picked up, very closely supported Niti Aayog in rolling out implementation strategies, various intervention strategies with regard to nutrition front, rolling out the Poshan Abhiyan targets, and as our other speakers have told, working very closely with government, not duplicating services, was the game changer. So now from 25 districts, we move to the other aspirational district as well. And gradually now, what we felt is still we need to actually zoom in our lens further. So what is the zooming in our lens further, which is like mapping in much more vulnerable among the vulnerable. Out of these aspirational districts, which are already prioritized by Government of India upon various dimensions as backward, within them also we found that the malnutrition is basically, if you look at the pattern across country, it is concentrated in few geographies. It is typically concentrated in few geographies. So on a broader lens, if I have to say, you will see that majority of the malnutrition is actually concentrated in 7 states of India, and within the 7 states also, the 50% of the habitations of the aspirational districts are actually the most vulnerable. And within them, again, if you actually zoom in, within these districts, aspirational districts also, the tribal districts are majorly most vulnerable because they do not have access to either services as well, basic services, which other geographies are getting. So that is where we move to the next level. While the aspirational district transformation program is happening, we strengthen the other dimension, that is tribal health collaborative. Tribal health collaborative is a multi-stakeholder partnership wherein all partners can come together, be it funding, be it implementing partners, be it knowledge partners, be it anybody can come together and jointly work to uplift the health and nutrition situation of tribal communities. The vision is to prevent the preventable deaths among tribal communities broadly. So that is the journey of Piramal Swasthya. Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, you're rightly pointing out that it is the most vulnerable who really need the support. And for sure that comes with the last mile delivery of interventions. Now I'm saying that, you know, the government requires private sector support, but all of us know that it comes with its own sets of challenges to work with the government. Tanu, may I request you to highlight some of those anticipated challenges that you may have seen in your work, but also that you anticipate that some of the players here in the private sector might face when they go with their CSR projects? And how would you suggest you mitigate for those challenges?
Thank you, Neha. A very relevant and important question. As most of our projects are definitely with the support of government, and any private organization cannot do any project in isolation. That's not the effective way of doing any social development project. So sectorial collaboration is must to have some intervention which is particularly related to social development, because that calls in definitely for the resources perspective, from the perspective of expertise which comes in from both the sectors, because there is definitely exchange of capacity building of both the sectors, which they come up with their experiences, with their processes. Our effort should be to minimize the gap between the government and corporate machinery so that effective implementation can be done. As you mentioned, yes, there are challenges which such collaboration brings in, which if I bring in the term PPP, that is public-private partnership, whenever we go for such collaborations or any such partnership, the challenges could be related to the way of working in both the sectors, one. Second could be the structure. That could be at times time-consuming vis-a-vis when we talk about the private organization where the decision makings are fast. There could be challenges related to the controls. Who is ready to give their controls, to what extent? There could be role ambiguity, which can come in, who is going to do what and where. Also, there can be the concerns related to the legal, because both these sectors, they are working on a different legal framework. Private has their own legal challenges and government has their own compliances. So these are few things, and that definitely calls in for a trust. How much trust both these sectors are having on each other. These definitely can be mitigated through collaborative and a comprehensive processes and a program that can be developed in consonance to both the parties, both the sectors. There has to be a clear-cut role definition, who is going to do what and what will be the visibility, what is going to be the chunk of whose partnership and that way. Also, I feel that a clear definition of impact that need to be drawn while designing the program beforehand. That will reduce down any sort of heartburnings or any sort of distrust issue in such partnerships. So these are few of the ways which can be used to mitigate the collaboration. Definitely, no project can be implemented on the ground without government support, without their blessings. We have been working on many such projects on the ground, and that is definitely in agreement to the government. They are partners. Yes, there were challenges, but with the support, we could successfully plan those projects. We could successfully implement those projects on the ground. So that is something which I would like to call out, that yes, challenges are there, but there are ways to mitigate those challenges.
Absolutely. I think rightly mentioned by Tanu that a collaborative approach is the way to go ahead when you're working with the government, aligning on your KPIs upfront, aligning on the impact that you want to see upfront is something that is a way to mitigate some of the challenges that may come up. Now I'm going to move on to something which is more community driven, the real beneficiaries. How do you, Devika, through the community programs that you've spoken about right now, how do you ensure that they are cost effective? Because when you're looking at system strengthening with the government, those are some things that are seen to be more cost effective. The amount of the resources, the money that you have to put in for community level engagement are usually seen as cost intensive. But with Piramal Swasthya, how have you ensured that your programs are cost effective?
Right. Thank you for asking this question, Neha. This is a slight shift from what we're talking till now, like working with government, fine. System strengthening dimensions is a traditional way of looking at the nutrition programs. But the flip side of the program is like working with the community as well, which any CSR investment, according to me, has to have both the pillars in hand. It doesn't help if we just focus on system strengthening and does not focus on the communitization piece at all. So, see, we are looking at the malnutrition situations in India, right? So, in spite of various developments happening, in spite of the economy, Indian economy being improving, in spite of poverty reducing, comparatively from previous decade, I'm telling, decreasing, fertility rate decreasing, and illiteracy decreasing. But why is that malnutrition is not decreasing? It is increasing on the other way around, right? So which means somewhere we are actually going wrong. maybe our focus was heavily dependent on system. We were totally dependent on system, and system has only a limited capacity beyond which we cannot. So if a CSR is investing only on a system part, that means we are already aiming only for 50% result. And especially if a CSR is aiming only system part in tribal areas, we are already aiming only for 20% of the result only, because in tribal areas there is no penetration of system at all. So there is no point in actually doing the same thing again and again. So that is how, that is where a shift is required, wherein the community itself can actually become a key owners of their own problem that they're facing. So the communitization is the core element in the tribal health collaborative, wherein the community, they themselves become the participants. They themselves, they're not seen as beneficiaries, they're seen as the participant. They participate right from the planning of the program and designing and implementation of the program, because it is their program. And also, prioritization of the problem also happens through the community consultation process. What is the problem felt need by the community? Not is that what we want to do to the community. So just reverse the entire game, and if we actually involve the community in a very systematic approach, it is very cost effective. Not only cost effective, it is very sustainable model, because we may or may not be there tomorrow in that geography, but the community ownership continues to extend the legacy even after we leave behind, right? So in this process, just 1 minute, SHG group members, PRI members, and youth fellows, and when we are working in tribal geography, we felt like tribal healers are the biggest influencers who can influence the health and nutrition situation in the tribal community. So therefore, we roped in them also. In aspirational districts, we felt like faith leaders, religious leaders have a very good impact in actually sending out right message around nutrition. Therefore, we roped in them. So communitization, as I told you, is a key channel.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I often feel that champions within the community really take the work forward that any organization starts. So rightly pointed out, thank you. Abhishek, so while she spoke about the program and that affecting the communities, you work with the product. And how is that different? How do you make that cost effective?
Right. So as I mentioned earlier, we are a social enterprise. A non-profit model is what we work on. So the pricing models and the goals of the organization are completely different from a traditional organization. So we primarily focus on long-term sustainability, good quality nutrition, and affordability. So keeping these things in mind, our pricing models are completely different. The way we manage our costs are very different. So keeping in mind the affordability, if you're working with the government, there are fixed budgets to work with. And the budgets do not change based on the price of the product, but we rather cater to the aforementioned budget that's already pre-decided. So those cost challenges are there, but even in today's day, we are able to provide high quality affordable nutrition at the basic unit economics of rupees 6.5 per child per day. Along with the fact that we are providing higher quality nutrition than most of the off-the-shelf nutritional supplements available in the market. So that is the sort of costing models and pricing models that we keep working on. Yes, there are the factors of economies of scale and how we play on the volumes. All of that is there. Even right now, as I have to bring in here that other than managing the cost, we are also still investing on R&D to bring in newer variants, so that we are able to bring in new effectiveness, new angles of usages. One of the examples is the high protein variant that we have brought in of the core product, and now we are finding its usage in TB nutrition as well as for SAM children. Again, keeping it quite affordable, considering the protein content that we are able to give. We are providing around 20 grams of protein per 100 grams of product, which is quite big considering the cost at which we are providing it. So those are ways where we are able to manage costs internally, and keeping in mind the larger goal that we have of long-term good quality nutrition that we need to provide. So that's what the overall philosophy is based on. Again, keeping in mind the SDGs that we have to target, zero hunger and good health and well-being being the primary focus of ours. So affordability is something that's always the on top of the priority list that we have. So that's how we do it.
Absolutely. I think one thing when you're working with the government or you're supporting the government is that they have budgetary norms. And I think it's best to ensure best quality, but also optimize your cost over a period of time through your experience. So that's critical. Thank you. I would like to now talk a little bit about monitoring and evaluation. As we discussed that, collaborative approach to identify and align on the impact upfront with the government is critical so that you don't face challenges. So Nilesh, would you walk us through and the audience through some of the critical M&E metrics that you leverage while designing and implementing your project?
So before jumping to the M&E part, so just let me tell you about the project Fortune SuPoshan, which we are doing. So as I said, and Devika also rightly mentioned, that the community aspect, if we forget while designing the program what community needs, we have the design of the program, but if we want to customize with the need of the community, that's the bigger for the first step, I would say. So in project Fortune SuPoshan that we have right now in 20 locations across India, where we are doing and focusing more on the behavior aspect of the community, because we know that we don't have much, that the food security is given by the government schemes, but the right nutrition per se. There is no right nutrition. Like if you go to Rajasthan, they just will have one roti, chutney or achar. If you go to South, there will be just rice and sambar. But how we can balance what Abhishek rightly mentioned about the protein content, carbohydrate, fibers, that balanced nutrition which is lacking. So in SuPoshan, what we do is basically having the focus group discussion. It's a traditional approach. We are not reinventing anything else. Whatever is being done by the frontline workers, but how we can integrate the efforts along with the government workers, focus group discussion, or those who are not participating in community meeting, how we can counsel them through a Poshan Vatika, like kitchen garden aspect is also very well known because for the diet diversity. So all the interventions we have planned as per the community needs. But when we do the implementation, how we are going to execute it on the ground. So for that, we have to have our key process indicators, basically. All the quantitative as well as the qualitative indicators. And as we all know, whenever it comes to evaluation, we have baseline, midline, endline, which we do through the third party. So we will learn from them that where we are lacking, whether we are selling our, the ship is correct direction, what we have thought from the beginning. So that is the third party. But I don't recommend that we have to wait for our midline results to come or our endline results to come. We have our set of team sitting at the head offices, like Devika will be in Delhi, somewhere in that, but she has a team. So rather than finding the faults, if we send our officers for the supportive supervision. So we have said that the focus group discussion has to be in this way, and if it is not happening, we have to guide our team, that's called hands-on training basically. So supportive supervision will definitely help and boost our program while doing a concurrent monitoring, I say. And the recent term is on social return on the investment, what we see, impact investment. So on that also, I would definitely say the nutrition programs. In SuPoshan, we always take the life cycle approach in MIYCN, starting from the child, healthy adolescence, healthy mother, giving a birth to a healthy child. So until and unless we do all this approach and tackling through a concurrent monitoring, supportive supervision, we will not meet the goals what we are expecting. So going in the monitoring challenge, that supportive supervision and our third-party evaluations will definitely boost our efforts.
Absolutely, rightly pointed out. I think supportive supervision is increasingly becoming a part of most projects in India. Linking that, Tanu, have you faced any of these challenges? Like Nilesh mentioned that you already decide on your M&E framework, you have a baseline, midline, endline, but very often when you're trying to get data for that, or when you're trying to implement that, you can get confused. You cannot find the relevant data. You may not find the impact that you're looking for. Have you faced any of those challenges in your projects? And how do you suggest of course, supportive supervision is one, but any other ways that you may want to throw light on?
Definitely there are challenges in M&E framework as well. See, every project has different M&E, so we cannot have single formula for all the projects. If monitoring is the process, evaluation is the progress report of what we are doing on field. So M&E gets impacted by the data, which could be incomplete, which could be inaccurate. So that is one of the biggest challenge, particularly social development projects, which is many times unorganized. I would like to mention one incident from the project which I have been working since last 5 years. That's on Project Shodhan, when we were on the ground, when we were implementing and we were on the verge of monitoring. We realized that most of the farmers, they didn't have their basic registration number, which is called Khasra number. So that was one bit which made us way forward a learn thing, that we need to be foolproof whenever we are planning the project, what all aspects are required. So inaccurate data or incomplete data is one of the challenge which I strongly feel is there in monitoring and evaluation framework. Then there is lack of resources is also the other challenge which we feel, because most of the funds, I would like to bring in a corporate perspective over here. Most of the funds that goes into the implementation, in monitoring and evaluation, that gets at the backstage. A very small amount is parked on that. So that is the second challenge which I would mention. Third, there is inadequate tools or technology which can help in monitoring the project. There could be a lot of monitoring aspects, like if you talk about our parameters or our impact should be quantitative, as mentioned by Nilesh, that it should be quantifiable, it should be quantitative. So all these parameters need to be smart, right? Specific, measurable, time bound. And we don't have tools to measure all those qualitative and quantitative aspects. So that is the another angle which I feel that we don't have those tools, and it really calls in for CSR sector to bring in the monitoring and evaluation tools into CSR space. Yes, all these things can be mitigated as Neha requested. What could be the ways? We need to have a baselining of the project. Whenever we are designing the project, we need to factor in what are the impacts we are actually looking for. And on those parameters, we need to monitor. It could be the monitoring of the beneficiary, it could be financial monitoring, it could be project monitoring, it could be anything which is related and relevant to the project we are working on. So that is something, a better way of mitigating the challenges which could be there at the phase of monitoring and evaluation. Back to you, Neha.
Thank you. Nilesh, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, so what Tanu had rightly added, that in Project SuPoshan, I just want to add that our data management system, that each and every project, because we have moved out of the paper and pen system, so what we have is a real-time data tracking software, which we have developed under SuPoshan. So you know that, like, identifying a SAM, it's calculating the Z score. It's not a cup of tea of Anganwadi worker or any local women, which we have appointed as a volunteers, basically. So having a WHO Anthro-based software in the Android-based application, which will be working on the offline base. So we have our system, which is available as the Android phones with them, and they're regularly doing the anthropometry of the children, having height, weight, and immediately that women or our volunteer is coming to know that this child is a SAM or a MAM category. If SAM, we have to refer them immediately to the NRC, basically. We don't know that the mortality in the SAM child is 11 times more than the normal children. So that technology definitely will help in the data part of the concurrent monitoring of our program when we say about the nutrition part. And it's crucial for the child's survival. Plus those technology aspects during the monitoring we can use through the videos and the IC material. It can help the program for the supportive supervision I mentioned. But at the same time, because let's say Tanu or myself, we can't go into the field again and again. But through the help of technology, we can do a concurrent monitoring again and again, right?
Absolutely. I think technology, again, is increasingly being leveraged in most of the programs, even before they've started. So I think that's a critical component that you brought on. Now, I think the last section of this discussion should really excite all of you, because we're going to be talking about what do organizations need to look at the private sector needs to look at while developing their CSR projects. So because Tanu's been part of all of those board meetings, maybe you could shed some light on what are the critical components that you look at when you're even initiating your thought into putting the money into a CSR project.
The first and the foremost thing is vision. Vision of leadership. How much board, how much senior leadership is aligned to your CSR vision. That's the first step. And how much they are into it. So once you have that direction, then the real work starts. The very first step for implementing or thinking of any CSR project is baselining. You need to have the problem statement. If you know what is the problem, you will be able to find out the solution. So that's the very first step. Once you have done the baseline, which is definitely should be backed up by data, artifacts, and all required information, the next step which comes into the partnership, a very important bit. What sort of partnership, what all stakeholders you need to bring into the intervention. Private-public partnership, who will be the stakeholders, direct stakeholders, indirect stakeholders. Then comes the model. What model you want to bring in, and as I mentioned earlier, monitoring framework is different from all sort of model. It could be different for environment model, it could be different from skill model. So all the models which is there for us in Birlasoft is entirely different. So what model you want to implement. And when you are figuring out that this is a model you want to bring into the ground, what should be the impact? What could be the SORI, right? What should be the quantifiable and quantifiable impacts that this intervention is going to lead to? Once a project is having the impact parameters which is smart, definitely, then comes your exit strategy. You cannot make the community with whom you are working dependable on the project. You need to plan out your exit strategy. That should be sustainable. They should know the point where the support will not be there from the corporate or the implementation partner. So that's definitely the sustainable exit strategy that you need to bring in. This is from the ground perspective. If I talk about from the organization perspective, how much could be the volunteer engagement? How much your volunteer can be part of the intervention which you are taking on the ground, because that definitely calls in for directly or indirectly organization pride amongst the employees. How much that project is going to give the brand value, how much that is going to give leverage to the organization in terms of goodwill. These are few factors which need to be kept in mind while designing any CSR project. So this is all about end-to-end chain of the thoughts on CSR implementation project.
Thank you, Tanu. I think the one which sticks out for me is the exit strategy, because I think when you're starting a project, you don't think about it, but I think it's such a critical component, sustainability, scalability, replicability of projects, so that no community or no government is dependent on you. Nilesh and Devika, could you guys talk a little bit more about, CSR has a limited budget, right? Within that, there is health, there's education, there's livelihoods, there's poverty alleviation. How can companies, like some of them sitting here, convert nutrition as the core intervention for their companies?
Yeah, so as we all speak about the SDGs and the nutrition, but as we all speak about, like, without nutrition, nothing can move around, right? As I said, that the healthy child will become a healthy adult, and the DALI will be like, all those things will go up and our GDP will go up. So until and unless we invest on the foundation, I would definitely say that the nutrition interventions are the core or the base of any nation or a developing nation. Right now we are in the category of developing nation. And if we want to go into the category of developed nation, until and unless government, CSR, private players, community, everybody should try to bring their focus on the nutrition. When the CSR Act came in, everybody was having the mandate that 2.5% of their benefit has to be for the corporate social responsibility. But who will get into the management, who will get into all the aspects and the nuances? Rather than that, procure something, whatever the needs for the community, just donate it. my term and my liability has been completed. But rather than that, it just once upon a time we are donating something, but rather if we can engage through the needs of the community through a proper channel. And I would say, like giving an example, like we are roaming around and seeing the stalls, you can see more than 50% are towards education. I don't say that education is not important, but at the same time, along with education, we have to have a focus on the nutrition part, because the right nutrition, the education on the right nutrition or the appropriate nutrition has to be a part wherever we are doing in the CSR. And without nutrition, none of your education, health, whatever. All programs are interdependent. As we say, malnutrition is a multifaceted. Only we work on giving the food aspect won't solve the problem. Only giving education won't solve the problem. So if we work in a convergence, that's what Poshan Abhiyan also says, that we have to work in a convergence. So wherever we are there, see the need, but don't ignore or overlook the nutrition aspect. Just because nutrition is not going to give us what we say, that return on impact investment so soon. But when we say that social return on the investment, nutrition is definitely giving us return in our future by making our, what PM's vision is, malnutrition-free India. And I would definitely pledge towards all the CSR and private companies to give whatever the budget allocation. Absolutely, Tanu said that it's a management call. But as we are the leaders and from the development sector and from the technical background, we have to convince them why the nutrition is important and why we should have to allocate some part towards the nutrition interventions.
Absolutely. I think by the end of the day today, some of you all should have raised your hands to pledge, your CSR funding on nutrition. Dev, you want to add to that?
I think Nilesh has summed up very well. So yes, nutrition is a core. Only thing is, as Nilesh has said, we don't get to see the outcomes. Those of you who have seen the famous economist ranking of the best development investment, Copenhagen consensus. So what does it say? See, these economists, they have studied various development investments, and they have ranked the nutrition investment the topmost. Because every $1 spent in towards addressing nutrition challenge, the return is $30, right? So looking at in this direction, I think all CSR should actually make this as a core element. And not only direct nutrition interventions, also need to look at nutrition sensitive intervention, not only nutrition specific, but also nutrition sensitive like food security, fortification of foods, like enhancing diet diversity and all these elements. One more point I just want to add here is also looking at the critical window of opportunity. Currently, the critical window of opportunity the government sees is the 1,000 days approach, which we already know, right? But actually, when you look into the 1,000 days approach, when the mother conceives, when does she get to know that she's pregnant, and when does she actually go and register at an Anganwadi center, and when she starts accessing services, and what is the duration left? Intrauterine correction course ke liye, what is the duration left? Hardly 3 or 4 months. That's all. So nothing much can be done. Though it is critical, nothing much can be done in that direction. Therefore, the second critical window of opportunity need to be looked at. That is the preconception phase, which we are totally neglecting. All women in reproductive age group have to be given this services, and even the adolescent girls as well. And the third one I want to focus is every nutrition program, at least the CSR is focusing on, should ensure that there is a direct food supplementation component happening. Local food model, but still food is nutrition, right? How much of a training we do, how much of a skill building we do, that is not actually translating to the direct food intake that the child is taking or the mother is taking. Therefore, please ensure that there is a component of direct supplementation, because it is, we feel that Anganwadi is taking care of the entire supplementary part. But frankly, if you look at the Anganwadi THR, the Anganwadi hot meal program is not supplementary. It is actually replacement feeding that is happening. If you take into factor the required dietary allowances, the mother is not consuming at home. She is coming at Anganwadi center and having. So it is a replacement. The child also having the breakfast, skipping at home and coming at eating at Anganwadi center. So it is only a replacement. Therefore, a CSR can actually look into adding a supplementary component to it as well. That's all I want to say.
Absolutely. I think very relevant point brought up here, which is these supplementary food should not be your primary food. They should act as supplements. So what I'm hearing is more nutritious food on the table through CSR, and I would really like for you all to, think about this and implement this through your programs.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like, when she brought about the supplementation component, I was really happy.
Yeah.
Not because we make a supplement, but this is something that we have been going on advocating for, that supplementation is a necessary component, and does not is not synonymous with a grocery kit or a hot cooked meal, because it gets distributed among the various family members. You cannot just give the mother a particular product, because it is going to get distributed back at home. So yeah, the targeted supplementation is something that we have been constantly talking about, so that it does not get diluted. And the other point that I wanted to bring in here is that when we are talking about like convincing CSRs or corporates to come in and participate, I think tangibility is an aspect which is something that they look at very strongly, tangibility and visibility, and something that we have tried to address through co-branding of the product, mass customization of the product, creating labels which would carry their branding, so that they get more interested, they get more visibility, and see tangible outcomes of out of nutrition intervention programs, which sometimes they find it difficult to see. So that is something that we have been able to do, and I think that helps a lot in convincing corporates in their decision making, probably.
Yeah, thank you, Abhishek, for seconding the thought. And one more point that I felt like it's important to add here is it's not important to know whether the child is stunted or wasted or underweight. I mean, we are so much lost into growth monitoring and actually segregating the children into which category of malnutrition they are falling into. We are forgetting the big picture of how to actually correct that. Irrespective of stunting, wasting or underweight, our intervention is not going to change, right? Unless and until, as Nilesh has mentioned, the 10% who are critically, severely, acutely malnourished, who require institutional support, if you leave them, the remaining 90% ke liye interventions can go as a blanket approach. So one humble submission is maybe we should stop getting into too much of growth monitoring and measurement, and actually looking at how many children are malnourished and how many are into each category and all. Yeah, that is another submission.
Thank you.